Gemini 3, which is now the state-of-the-art model, the best model we have out there right now, give or take, I think that's a fair enough statement, is not trained on Nvidia. It is trained on Google's own TPUs, or tensor processing units. So a GPU is something that Nvidia build, and they have the H200s, the H100s, or the ones that you might have in your home PC, things like the 4080 and the 4090. That's not what's being used. So Nvidia has become the largest company on earth because everybody needs their GPUs right now and is signing these multi-billion-dollar deals with Nvidia because they're the only game in town. Google have circumvented that. Google have built Gemini 3 Pro on their TPUs. They did not use Nvidia's chipsets. That's huge. We have a little statement here, which is Gemini 3 Pro was trained using Google's tensor processing units. TPUs are specifically designed to handle the massive computations involved in training large language models and can speed up training considerably compared to CPUs. TPUs often come with large amounts of high bandwidth memory, allowing for the handling of large models and batch sizes during training, which can lead to better model quality. TPU pods, which is basically a large cluster, sticking them all together in a rack, also provide a scalable solution for handling the growing complexity of large foundation models. Training can be distributed across multiple TPU devices for faster and efficient processing. So Google have, for the last few years, have been building their own chipsets, which are specifically made for machine learning. They're specifically made for artificial intelligence, whereas GPUs were initially for video games. Anyone who plays video games and has been a PC gamer for any amount of time knows that you have to have a GPU, a graphics card, to run video games. During the crypto craze, people were using GPUs to mine Bitcoin and other currencies, and now GPUs are being used in artificial intelligence, which makes them the hottest product in town. That's why Trump has imposed restrictions on Nvidia's sales to mainland China. Nvidia had to create their own stripped down versions that could be sold to the Chinese market. Even those were hit with tariffs. Google's just said, we are not going to be restricted by the supply from Nvidia. We are not going to be hit by whatever price you decide to charge. We're going to build our own. And they've done so. And more than that, they have trained a state-of-the-art model using those chips. This, more than anything else, makes them the main contender. They control the moat. Google have built a chipset, or a series of chipsets, which will allow them to train their own models without dependence on Nvidia's GPUs. While everyone else, including OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, are basically begging, scraping and pleading Jensen Huang, the head of Nvidia, for more chipsets. Please keep building, build faster. And you see these circular investment diagrams with ChatGPT saying to Oracle, we're going to spend this number of billions, and then Oracle go to Nvidia and say, we need to order this many $1 billion worth of GPUs, and then Nvidia invests into OpenAI because it knows that they're going to be using the GPUs. You get this whole circular economy. Instead, Google is saying, no, we're going to bring that all in-house, and we're going to own the vertical. We're going to own the supply of these processors. They'll probably start building power stations so that they can own the supply of electricity. We're going to own the model, and we're going to own the application layer by deploying this into our search engines, which they've just done with Gemini 3. We're going to deploy it into Google Workspace. We're going to deploy it into your software and bring it to you, into your Android devices. Google, because of this layer, owning the TPUs, training their own models on their own hardware, on their own TPUs, is something I missed yesterday. And this changes the game entirely. And this is something that I think a lot of people have missed. This is huge, really huge. Getting a GPU in the first place would be nice. GPUs are really hard to get. I want to build a gaming PC. I haven't had a gaming PC for 10 years now, and I'd love to build one again. Buying a 4090 is, how much is a 4090 now? Nvidia GeForce 4090 is £2,200, and that's on pre-order, so it's out of stock. And the other ones are £2,600 out of stock, $2,200 out of stock. They are incredibly expensive. And remember that when you were building a data center, you're not buying 4090s, but you are buying masses of these graphics cards, these GPUs, and they cost a huge amount of money. And this is why Nvidia is worth so much money, because they are pretty much the only game in town for building these. There are other companies, but it's really theirs to lose. They're almost a monopoly. Trying to get a GPU right now is impossible. It has been for years because of crypto as well. Fantastic analysis. Google, rather than getting weaker, is back in pole position. Yeah, I think I'm really bullish on Google now because owning the whole vertical slice and not relying on companies like Nvidia puts them in a great position. I'm hopeful. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I really like ChatGPT, I want them to win, or I love Grok, I want Grok to win. They become quite tribal and partisan behind a particular model or a particular company. For me, it's probably Anthropic and Claude. I really like it. What I like more, though, than any particular company or model is the competition. And the fact that we have a new state-of-the-art model every month. So people right now are like, Gemini's the best. I've cancelled my ChatGPT subscription. I'm never using it again. In a month or so, ChatGPT will release a new model and everyone will be like, oh, Gemini is dead, and run back to ChatGPT. And there's all this tribalism, which is missing the point that all of these models are getting better all the time. We're going to talk about scaling in a minute because I'm going to talk about Jan LeCun and Gary Marcus, who are having a very public spat. I wouldn't be that surprised if it ends in somebody suing somebody, but we'll get to that in a moment. On the TPUs, this is a bit more detailed. I'll put this in the newsletter, but there's a guy called Rohan Paul. He's on Twitter, but he catalogs AI news, but he goes into detail about the TPUs, what they're using. They're scaling 3 TPU chip families, Ironwood, Sunfish, and Zebrafish. They've got even larger pods deploying next year and into 2027. I'll put this in the newsletter because it's interesting, but it's a bit too detailed. One question is, people are always asking, what's a tensor processing unit? These things aren't available to buy. You can't walk into a Best Buy. Does Best Buy still exist? Or a Currys in the UK and buy a TPU. This is just Google building for themselves. They have no interest in releasing these to the market. They build them and use them to train models. So that's why we don't hear about them compared to GPUs, which we can purchase consumer level versions of it. Technically, you could purchase a H200. How much does an H200 cost though? An 8 times H200 is 300,000. This was a year ago, so it's probably more than that now. Let's have a look. So this is an Nvidia DGX H200. It's £345,000, excluding VAT. With VAT, it's bringing you up to £432,000. So the price of a house. Or you could buy one server rack block. Remember, these companies are filling warehouses with these things. And this one by itself is nearly £500,000. So you can buy them, but it's not very practical. Whereas with TPUs, Google are just holding them. They're like, nope, these are for us. These are for us to deploy, develop, and build our own models. That's why we have Gemini 3. Speaking of Gemini 3, somebody did some vibe maths. I love how vibe has permeated everywhere. Vibe coding has entered the dictionary and it became the Collins Dictionary Word of the Year, which I thought was fun. Lisan Al-Gaib from June predicted the parameter size of the Gemini 3 model is, and this is very much, he's calling it vibe maths, back of the envelope mathematics. But the number they've come to is about 7.5 trillion parameters. The lower bound is 1.7 trillion and the upper bound is 12 trillion. I've talked about parameters before. It's a rough way to gauge how big the model is and how good the model is. Generally, the more parameters you have in the model, the more transformer layers, the bigger the model itself, the better the model will perform. Up until now, with large language models, a scaling law has applied where if you throw more information into it and your model size is larger, it will perform better. We don't really know why. We don't really know all the mathematics, but up until now, it's just been like, okay, just make them bigger, make them bigger. There is a fear, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about Gary Marcus and Lan shortly. There's a fear that we are going to hit a wall. So we'll scale, and then it will drop out, and large language models won't take us any further. We haven't hit that yet. So up until now, basically making them larger, adding more parameters into the model makes the models better. And this is supposedly a 7.5 trillion parameter model, which is absolutely gigantic. So I'll add this in so you can look at the analysis yourself.